And if you want to be really truly accurate with every single note that you play throughout your entire range on the horn, you got to have kind of specific settings for each note. And those can be worked on very simply by either half-step bending from any note to its half-step below neighbor to doing actual trills in both cases across your entire range, and making sure that you're making those little adjustments that mean the difference between an okay note and an extremely resonant, perfect note. So. The half-step bending routine is what he's referring to, and that's the process of just going I have a whole routine built off of that. That was one of the things that really helped me pull my shit together the most. And to answer your question, no, it's not part of my daily routine. Although I introduce that routine isn't part of my daily ritual, but there's always some half-step bending. Anytime I find myself on a note that's not 100% open and resonant, I'll stop and give myself like a little pop quiz on that note. So in that example, I purposely overshot and then corrected, overshot the high C, hit a D, went to the high C, but I was sharp on it because I had originally overshot it. And so, in this example, it's like, okay, crack the note, but now I'm on the note, but I feel like there's something wrong with the note, a bit too much tension. Let me do a half-step bend on that. And that gets me down into the sweetest, fattest, juiciest part of the note. I'll do exactly the same thing again. Notice how where I centered, eventually, it was where it was in tune, it was lower in pitch than where I started, and the sound was much fatter. So the half-step bending is something that I use to open up my sound. It works very well for a lot of people. And for some people that can't really get on board with half-step bending, the alternative would be actual trilling. Where you've got really juicy, fat notes in both cases, whether it's a whole step or a half step, either way, just going up a scale. If you can really make the little adjustments necessary to get both notes to be 100% in the sweet spot, that requires change. That requires a small change to your air. The same exact change to your air that would be required to do the half-step bending. So whether it's with the valve or not with the valve, either way, if I just play a G long tone and then move, push down the second valve, that's not really going to get me to an optimal F sharp. That's going to get me to a sharp F sharp because I'm going to be playing with G air. So you hear the G much more resonant than the F sharp. Or that G is flat and it's uncentered because I'm just playing an F sharp air long tone, if you will. And in both cases, the problem with that is that the air isn't changing for both notes. And if you want to be really truly accurate with every single note that you play throughout your entire range on the horn, you got to have kind of specific settings for each note. And those can be worked on very simply by either half-step bending from any note to its half-step below neighbor to doing actual trills in both cases across your entire range. And making sure that you're making those little adjustments that mean the difference between an okay note and an extremely resonant, perfect note. So while no, that particular half-step bending routine isn't in my daily daily bag of tricks, it has been assimilated into me. You know, I did it for a really long. That exercise was part of my daily routine longer than anything else has ever been. But now it's one of the basic food groups for me, or one of those kind of topics that I always touch on in some way, shape, or form. So.